So 2022 marks 20 years since the release of Status Quo's 25th studio album, Heavy Traffic. It was somewhat of a different one after the covers album, famous in the last century from 2000, a couple of years prior. And that is because Matt Letley joined the band. Everything just seemed to be a lot more energetic, I think. And it led to Jam Side Down, their first top 20 single in many a year. And I think the album Heavy Traffic is much considered by fans to be a great return to form. I'm joined by Alex, who's been on the podcast before. Alex, what do you think of Heavy Traffic?
I think it's a really good modern album. I don't think it is as good as some fans make it out to be. I mean, I'm a bit I'm honest. I mean, the first all the tracks played live were great. You know, the ones you heard a year before the album was released, which was quite unusual for the band to do that at the time. I think we heard 2 or 3 tracks about a year before on the previous tour before the album came out. So we sort of had a taste of what we were going to get. You know, it's a really good album. I think the first 6 tracks are great. You know, but I think maybe it sort of slides into a little bit of filler a bit later on. But at the time, it was a good album compared to what they had done on the previous couple. I think, you know, it's where they should have got back to. You had Bob Young coming back into the writing team with Francis, which was always a bonus. You know, like the earlier albums. I mean, you had Matt Letley coming in, as you say, which sort of reinvigorated the band a bit at the time. You know. So it was all pluses at the time, and obviously with you know, with the promotion as well was quite well handled. With the I think the album launch was on the Art Royal, wasn't it? I think
It was, yeah, and they filmed the music video for Jam Side Down there too. It led to Quo being on Top of the Pops as well, which they hadn't been for quite a while.
Yeah, but it was about 8 years or something, wasn't it? They hadn't been on the show, which was quite unusual. That length of time compared to what they had done earlier. There was every year, wasn't it? Up to a certain point, wasn't it?
Yeah, I want to say the last sort of original single, so not like sessions that they'd done, because I think they'd done like Top of the Pops 2 sessions at several points in sort of the late 90s, early 2000s. The last original one would have been I Didn't Mean It in 1994, which if you ever see that performance, it just doesn't match what's going on. I think the way they had the studio styled at the time and the style of music just don't fit together. But by 2002, it was amazing to see Quo on Top of the Pops. And of course, they would repeat that a few years later with The Party Ain't Over Yet as well.
Yeah. I mean, Top of the Pops obviously went through sort of different generations. I mean, Quo were there for the 60s right through to like a couple of years ago, wasn't it? I think the last one. But you sort of had it like in 94, you had them sort of stuck between Take That and, I don't know, was it Wet, Wet, Wet or something like that, wasn't it, at the time, and the charts, and it's sort of like that they seemed a bit sort of out of place. But I mean, but that hadn't sort of happened before in the 80s. They sort of like, you know, everyone expected them to come on and play. But as you say, by 2002, I think things have become more, I think they a bit more respected. I mean, Bowie and Elton John have done albums which were considered like as equal to what they'd done in the 70s. So all those sort of older acts were starting to re-emerge with sort of creativity a little bit, weren't they, at the time as well? So I think it was about the right time. All those boy bands had gone by then. It was sort of more. I'm not quite sure what the early 2000s were really. It was sort of like a mix and match of things, wasn't it?
It was many things. As you point out, though, the Heavy Traffic album is seen as a return to form after Under the Influence, which itself is a decent album.
Yeah, I like that album. That's one of my favourites, I think, of the post 86 to 2000 lineup. I think that's probably one of my favourites, actually, that one. But it didn't really sell, did it, really, though? Did it, that one?
Not really, no. And I think maybe it suffered from a certain type of production. And maybe Famous in the Last Century kind of suffers with that. I listened to that earlier today, and it's amazing how kind of staid it sounds, but I think it's because it's a covers album and they're just kind of going through the motions. Whereas Heavy Traffic, there's a sense of energy, and I think it was Mike Paxman that pointed out on the Party Ain't Over Yet documentary that at a certain point he said, "Let's get all the equipment in and basically do it in a live setting, kind of a thing, in the studio."
Yeah, it's sort of like they're sort of going back to like the pile driver hello sort of ways of doing recording, wasn't it? I think they used to sit in a, like the magic circle. Someone mentioned, wasn't it called? Someone said, in them days you just sit around jamming and coming up with stuff as well. So it wasn't all done, but uh, halfway across the country, somebody was studying things by tape and all this sort of thing, which you can do now. But they sort of all got back to like that sort of the old ways of doing things, which was a bonus, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. So if we look at the track listing, I'm looking at the UK track listing. So we start off with Blues and Rhythm, and into All Stand Up, Never Say Never, The Oriental, Creeping Up on You, Heavy Traffic, Solid Gold. Those are those 6 tracks that you were talking about. And you said it kind of peters out after that. And I would be in agreement, I think, although I do like the track Green. I think Jam Side Down's possibly one of their best, most commercial singles ever. Diggin' Bert Bacharach is one of Francis Rossi's favourite compositions, I think. I think after that, though, with tracks like Do It Again, Another Day, I Don't Remember Anymore, Rhythm of Life,
Yeah,
it sort of peters off slightly, doesn't it?
yeah. They're not bad songs. I mean, I just think they become a bit. I know this is not like a negative term, a bit quo by numbers, is it?
Yeah.
You class it as a bit, but I mean, yeah, but I mean, it's a good album. I mean, I like some of the B sides that were good as well. I mean, You Let Me Down, that was a good. I think I always like that one.
Yeah, it was a slightly different kind of mode for Quo to do a track like You Let Me Down.
Yeah, it's sort of like a little bit at the start, a bit of a slow ballad, and it builds up to that jam at the end, which I've always liked those sort of like changing arrangements on Quo records. I mean, they hadn't really sort of done anything like that for a while, had they? Sort of like but I suppose it was a bit too off the wall to be on the album, but it's a shame it wasn't really that one.
Well, I think we could have an entire conversation about B-sides that should have been on the album. I think in particular some of the B-sides from the late 70s, some of those, why they didn't appear on albums, I have no idea. But by the early 2000s, the singles are still important. But I remember seeing like the Jam Side Down single and All Stand Up and that stuff, and they'd often put live versions of songs as B-sides. Do you think that enticed fans to buy it, and that's why it charted so high, or was it something else?
Yeah, yeah, there was it was like that carrot dangling to have some of the older tracks. Obviously, they wanted those sort of things to appeal for the general record buyer, which I think at the time there was still casual buyers of Quo records. I think it hadn't quite got to the stage of just Quo fans buying the singles, but with that single, I think there was 2 versions, which probably bumped it up the chart a bit, wasn't it? I mean, we all go out and buy both versions as fans, don't we? Usually, so there was. I think but that was like a trend from the 90s. You had like part one was one week, and then you had another one the next week. But I think they started releasing them together. So obviously, the fans would buy a single. I'm not saying the fans, but someone would go out and buy the single and might have bought 2 versions of it. So obviously, that's 2 CD singles which sell. So obviously, that bumps the sales up, doesn't it?
Definitely. The producer for this album was Mike Paxman, who's produced things with them previously. Do you think the production on the album is good, or could it have been better?
I think. I mean, I'm not an expert about production. I mean, we can always say that should have been louder. I think maybe the certain things like the our drums could have been brought up a bit higher in the mix, maybe a little bit, maybe a bit of the vocal. But I think with these new remastered versions, I'm not sure if they messed around with the mixes with them. Have they? The pending deluxe version coming out.
I think they're just remastered as opposed to remixed. So if you think about the mid 2000s and all of the remasters that came out, it's more like that and less like what John Eden did with Rockin' All Over the World.
Yeah. I don't think it needs a massive remix. Obviously, a remaster and certain things louder, maybe. But yeah, I think for the time it was a good, a good release, and it got to number 15 in the chart, didn't it? I think
It did, yeah.
at the time that was a good chart position. I think now we're top five again, because the way the charts have gone and everything, with the previous couple of albums have all gone top 10. But obviously back in 2002, that was a good. It sold well, didn't it, for the time and the following. I mean, I'm not going to get ahead of myself because you might want to talk about the next album, but I mean, I think the covers album which followed that was due to be released the same year, wasn't it, originally? And it was put back a year because Heavy Traffic sold quite well, which I think they're quite relieved about. That they didn't sort of have to promote that much, did they?
It's a good job that they put them in that order. I mean, could you imagine Famous in the Last Century coming out and then a couple of years later releasing Riffs?
Yeah, I think that would have been a bit of a career killer. I think Francis. I remember seeing Francis an interview in one of the books. I'm not sure if it was the previous book or the one he did with Rick. Going back in the 2000s, but he said David Walker may have the ex-manager might have insisted on having a few covers on Heavy Traffic again, but I think they were obviously in an era where they had a new management and they were a bit more freer to sort of decide to do things that way. The whole thing is. I think one track was I think Jam Side Down was written for them, wasn't it?
It's Terry Britton and Charlie Dore.
All the other material was all originals, wasn't it? I think.
Pretty much, it's a band effort, and I think what you see between that and the next original album is that they start to rely more on other songwriters. But certainly, Heavy Traffic is unique because nearly every track, aside from that Jam Side Down single, is written by a member of the band.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of in sync with what they had done earlier on. I mean, in the 70s, you sort of had the odd cover on an album, didn't you? Like a Chuck Berry one, or like a co-written with other occasional outside writers, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With like friends of the band. Like I think, I mean, Bernie Frost was writing a little bit then, and Alan was writing with Mick Green. I think also had other people writing within the band, but obviously we got to an era where the covers became a bit more of a to the fore, didn't they? After a while, so
certainly as you get into the mid-90s, but
yeah.
No, Heavy Traffic, again, I listened to it earlier today and I was amazed just how energized it sounded, and certainly compared to the other stuff. Now, obviously, 20 years on, we are awaiting a deluxe edition of the album. Finally, there's a deluxe edition, but some fans may have noted that they've skipped some deluxe editions, including Don't Stop. Why do you think they've skipped those, Alex?
I mean, I'm not sure. Maybe copyright issues, possibly, because obviously a lot of those all that album was covered, so it might be something to do with the copyright. Maybe, I'm not sure. Is that something which could be an issue?
It could be, or it could be that no fan would buy it, or it would be a very limited release, I think.
I've heard there was a few more tracks recorded in those sessions, apparently. But I think there was a version of Money by what the Beatles done, but not the Pink Floyd version. There's was it Money by the Beatles, but it wasn't their song, was it?
No, it's a very popular standard. I think the usual title is something like Money, That's What I Want.
Yeah, I think someone I read somewhere where that was recorded for Don't Stop, but it was never released or put out on the album. So I think there's a few tracks maybe hanging around from those sessions. Obviously, there's a few originals in those sessions as well, which are B-sides, weren't they, which are coming out on a new compilation, I've noticed as well.
Yes, tracks from the 90s coming out on a compilation called Best from the Noughties.
Yeah,
that's his. That's. I think that's a conversation for another day. I think we could talk about that at length. But this new Heavy Traffic deluxe free CD edition. Disc 1 is the Heavy Traffic album remastered, as Alex pointed out. Disc 2 includes bonus tracks and demos, and Disc 3 is the live at Hirter Festival around that time. Now, I'll give you a couple of my observations, Alex, really. My observations were there weren't enough demos on this deluxe edition, because on that disc 2 you've got the Let's Start Again, which is one of the first songs that Francis Rossi and Bob Young wrote after getting back together again as a songwriting partnership. All Stand Up studio demo from 2001, Solid Gold studio demo from 2001, but then it just goes on to live performances. Where is the rest of it? Where are the known demos for Dig and Burt Bacharach? I think there's a demo out there for what is it called? Green, sung by Andy Bowen.
Yeah, and there's a version of those. I don't remember anymore. Was sung by Andy Bowen as well.
The 2 Heavy Traffic demos as well, because Heavy Traffic was originally 2 songs. One of them was called, I think, I Cried, and the other one Heavy Traffic, and they combined them together. Those are missing. Why do you think they've decided to omit so many studio demos and go for the live performances?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe there's this like halfway thinking of, appealing to the fans, but also having it to sell to the general public. I'm not sure if anyone outside the Quo fan base will want to buy this again. I don't know, unless it's something to do with the copyright, or again, as I said before, or they can't get hold of the material, it's not available, or so and so won't allow it to be put on there. I'm not sure, but it's all on YouTube, which I find a bit odd.
Yeah, there's quite a few studio demos, because I think a few years ago Bob Young had his own website, and I think he used to post those demos from that era. I think I read somewhere that Francis actually has been transferring demos from that era, so they do exist and they are out there. But as you point out, maybe they just felt like it was just too much and people wouldn't be interested from a general public. But like you say, this is a fan thing. Who outside of the fan base really has heard of Heavy Traffic? I mean, Jam Side Down was on one of the Now albums at that point, but other than that, who's going to care about it?
Yeah, I suppose in a way we're sort of lucky to get to the point of having all these re-released, because I'm not sure how much they'll sell. But we obviously with the '70s albums, obviously there's a bit of nostalgia with rock '70s rock fans to go and get them a bit, I suppose. But when it comes to the post, I didn't think they'll go any further than '82 really with them. But obviously they thought there was a market to sell to the fans. So some of the ones leading up to these ones were quite good, like despite what you think of the material, some fans think of the material on those '80s albums. Those packages were good. Of the I Could Play in the Perfect Remedy, and Rock Your Drop was great, because it had the whole concept from that gig, didn't it? From the 4 in 1 day for that one. So obviously there was all that material put on there, and it was good quality material as well. It wasn't like some of the '70s stuff, which was a bit grainy, wasn't it?
Well, I think they were using bootlegs or less than ideal recordings. With that in mind, Alex, what do you think of the idea of putting on this live at Hirter Festival performance? I mean, I don't think it's been released before, and there are tracks from the Heavy Traffic album on there, some of which weren't played later on. What is your take on it?
Obviously, the Quo sets, around that, ever since like then, have been sort of quite similar, haven't they? They got all the, like, Caroline down on it and everything. Yeah, I suppose it's this. I suppose it's in a way to fill the time up, maybe, to put live stuff on it, because obviously the fans have liked the live stuff. But I've heard a few criticisms on some of the message boards saying it's all the same set. But obviously that's what Quo did on that tour. You know, I mean, I think all the Heavy Traffic songs are on there, aren't they? On the new disc, are they?
Pretty much. You've got All Stand Up, Never Say Never, Solid Gold, Heavy Traffic, Creeping Up on You.
And I think I'm not sure if any more were played live. Were they from that? I suppose the Oriental came a bit later for some reason, didn't it? That for some reason, but that wasn't played on that tour. That came started. They've started doing that the year after, didn't they?
Yeah, and I think it's still in the set now.
Yeah, still there. Yes, even now. It's even now. Last the other day, it was still in the set. You know, obviously it's a song they like doing.
In this album, they must have, aside from what you might call the classic albums, these ones, it must be the album with the most kind of tracks performed live, because they did Blues and Rhythm live at one point, I think, and obviously All Stand Up, Never Say Never, The Oriental, Creeping Up on You, Heavy Traffic, Solid Gold, and they may have performed Jam Side Down at some point. That's a lot of tracks performed live from one album, isn't it?
Yeah, I think obviously I'm not sure if that's ever happened on any other album, has it? That amount of tracks played live, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. I think maybe Under the Influence had quite a few tracks that had like one-off airings, but other than that, but I think maybe that's a testament to the live feel of this album. A little bit like the Beatles Get Back, I guess, where they'd spent so much time in the late 60s overdubbing things and creating stuff that couldn't be created in a live setting. And then you've got Get Back, which is this album, obviously released as Let It Be initially, and recently as Get Back as part of that movie and stuff that's currently streaming on Disney Plus. But the whole idea of that Get Back project was to get back to the live feel, and I feel that's what they did. The Quo did with Heavy Traffic.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at some of the other albums from the previous ones, I mean, there was a lot of the albums in the 80s and some of the 90s albums, but they weren't really live, made for the live setting, really, were they? I mean, there's a couple of tracks on here and there, like 2 or 3 tracks on some of the albums which came before that. But obviously, they were dropped after that tour, weren't they? They didn't sort of get doing them. But with the Heavy Traffic ones, they sort of lasted in the set for quite a few years, didn't they?
And still, because 5 years later, they released In Search of the Fourth Chord, and they perform Beginning of the End, which sort of goes in and out of the thing. And obviously the tracks I think you might be referring to are from the mid-90s when they did Get Out of Denver. But tracks like that and the late 80s when they did Cream of the Crop, some of those were so fast that the band couldn't really keep up, and they just had to stay in the set for a very short amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was all the production on those albums as well, wasn't it? I mean, Rock You Drop was more live album, wasn't it? Of all those that time, I mean, Like a Zombie, and I think all those sort of was it? Was it a one-man band that was in and out the set as well for quite a while?
Yeah, I think it was about 5 years, wasn't it, that they kept performing that. What I find personally with Rock Till You Drop is it's actually quite produced, manufactured, if you will, in its way, but it's still quite raw.
Yeah, everything's high in the mix with that album as well. I found a little bit. It's quite good.
Yeah, I think maybe that's what it is with that album. This album obviously led to riffs, as you said, and I'm looking to do a full riffs episode next year, but considering they are releasing the Heavy Traffic deluxe edition at the same time as the riffs one, because obviously it's around the same time, same sessions, and they've been doing them in batches of 2 or 3 anyway. What did you make of riffs?
I mean, I think out of all the covers albums, it was the best sound wise I found.
Are you sure, Alex? I'm
No?
sorry. I have a fondness for the Don't Stop album. I happen to think the Don't Stop album is the bee's knees when it comes to Quo's covers albums.
Yeah, I mean, obviously some of the tracks they chose for Don't Stop were not expected. I mean, all the ones that they did for Famous in the last century have been sort of done to death by then, haven't they? Rock and roll covers and everything. You expect, I quite would do those songs. But I think as you say, on Don't Stop, it was a bit more unexpected. Things like, was it Safety Dance that they did, which was not a like a just a pop song, wasn't it? Really, and a few others. But I think with riffs, it was sort of more like a, I don't know, it was more like a bit of a halfway house between the two, really, wasn't it?
I just found with riffs that they didn't reinvent enough. In some cases, they didn't change many of the things around, and you think Quo doing "Don't Bring Me Down," they're going to change something. It's going to be kind of different from the ELO version, and it is. But some of the ideas there, it's like, but you're just doing the same arrangement with different flair, somewhat. I mean, really, the thing of note for the Riffs album is it contains the first lead vocal for Rhino on Centerfold.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, obviously that it's a song he unites probably enough to suggest that to the band, was it? Obviously, I mean, Rick sang was it Iggy Pop track, wasn't it, on that album? Was
Yeah, the
it? Yeah,
wild one.
yeah, that was quite good. I enjoyed that one. But yeah, I suppose in a way it was a bit like like the version of Pump It Up wasn't much different to the Elvis Costello version, and All Day All the Night have been, the Kinks and have done it, and the Stranglers have done it before, haven't they? And it's sort of like a song which has been done a couple of times, like released by people. So, but there's a few tracks on that album, like "Taking Care of Business." I think was good. That was quite a strong track, and um, I think I thought the Law that was quite a good, with Rick and Francis singing the dual vocal. It's a bit like the Clash with Mick Strummer and Mick Jones doing that, but obviously that song had been done a couple of times over the years too, hasn't it?
Yeah, I thought the clever thing about that album was that they put re-recordings on there of some of their classic tracks, so they didn't have the "Don't Stop" problem, where they could just play Caroline and Whatever You Want and Rockin' All Over the World, and maybe chuck down the dust pipe in a medley and go, well, there's some tracks from our new album. We don't have to play, "Don't Bring Me Down" or "Born to Be Wild" in front of you.
Yeah, it did chart. It was, I think that was released at the end of 2003, around just before Christmas, and it wasn't really promoted, was it? I think it got to number 44, I think, or something like that. But what I gather is that they had to do that to get Heavy Traffic released, didn't they? I've heard.
I feel like that's a thing, but the thing is, as a fan at the time, I mean, I was 12, so perhaps my view is slightly blinkered in some way. But as a fan at the time, it just felt like Heavy Traffic was Quo's new album. There was nothing in the way. They'd done the covers albums. That was over. And Chris Tarrant did the voiceover for the commercial, which I thought was really interesting. Sort of a little throwback to Rock Till You Drop and that type of thing. I remember him saying, "I love it" at the end of the commercial. But yeah, you had no idea that they'd had this other thing in the can. I mean, obviously, I guess they may have covered it in the fan club magazines and stuff, but to the general public, it was just Quo's back. They've got a new drummer. They've got, Francis and Bob back in the songwriting duties, and they're back again. And then obviously a year later with Riffs, it's like, well, okay. But like you say, they had to do one to do the other, and that's okay because the Party album came afterwards.
Yeah, there's sort of been an original album since then, hasn't it? Really, apart from the two acoustic, which were obviously re-recording their own songs again, weren't they? But obviously that was um, still original material, technically, wasn't it? But ever since then, I mean, I think Francis wasn't very happy about doing riffs, was he?
No,
He's quite annoyed about that. They had to do, part of the agreement to get to do Heavy Traffic for the record company. I'm not sure who oversaw that. I think it might have been the previous management pushed that through, but I'm not sure.
it felt like a holdover from
Yeah,
previous management. And
yeah,
I remember him sitting down for the Party Ain't Over Yet documentary and saying, I do, at the time of the covers albums, the original one, Don't Stop, he thought, I'm not going to write any more songs. That's it. And then basically him and Rick were like, well, we're not going to do any more covers albums. And they've stayed true to their word, actually, because like you say, Acoustic wasn't really a covers album. It was re-recordings of their own songs, and it wasn't just rehashes. They were new versions with new arrangements and new ideas, done in a different style in some cases, some very Django Reinhardt stuff. It wasn't just a straightforward thing.
No, I think a lot of getting onto those albums, if you want. I think a lot of fans just wanted them sitting on stage strumming and nothing else. But I think that wouldn't have appealed much. I don't think. I think they sort of needed a little bit going on. Some of the fans said, "Oh, why do they need the girl singers? Why do they need an accordion? Why do they need all that?" But I think really maybe with them just sitting on stage strumming, it wouldn't have been much of a in the studio having nothing much going on. I wouldn't really have built the wider audience, maybe.
No, that feels like a different kind of project to the one that they eventually set out to do. But the thing is, you always have those elements of color in studio production. I mean, All Stand Up, there's extra voices in there during the All Stand Up segments, which just lift it up a little bit and go towards what they were wanting to.
Yeah, I think a lot of people got a bit sidetracked in the '90s by Eric Clapton did one where he was just sitting on his own with another guitar player, I think, and a few other people just going through the songs. I think was it Hills did one, Nirvana, was it, and another one. So I think those are different acts altogether. They can get away with just them, But I think with Quo, sometimes you sort of need a little bit more of a visual. Not in the normal sense when Quo was staged because they're quite energetic and everything. But I think if you're in that sort of like scenario where you're sort of like in an acoustic environment, you sort of need something extra to fill the gaps up a little bit.
Definitely.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Will you be buying this deluxe edition?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you probably wait about a month and it'll come down to about £5. But I mean, I'll probably get it on release. That's what we do, don't we? As a first week of release and stuff like that. Yeah, I'll probably get it. Yeah, and yeah, it's I'm a collector anyway. I'm a completist when it comes to Quo. Anyway, I'm not everything, but CDs I usually go and get. And I'm just wondering if they'll working on any more like their live album. Is it Alive Quo? Hopefully they might do that one.
I think there was one in development, but it never came out. And I think it was that same reason that we've talked about when it comes to albums like Don't Stop, where they just don't feel like they're going to sell enough, I guess.
Yeah, I think I don't think that sold much on its original release. That one did it? I don't think, because it was all ripped from the Radio One roadshow, wasn't it? I think at the time, was it one of the Radio One roadshows? What they did?
I think so. Yeah, and it was obviously released on video as well, which may have sold slightly better. That's a great gig actually, especially the full Roadhouse blues that's on there with all the extra songs in it, which is a very brave thing to do in front of thousands of Radio 1 fans. Well, Alex, it's been a joy to talk to you again and discuss Heavy Traffic and its legacy. Maybe there will be a remixing of the album at some point. We're just going to have to wait and see. I think once things start to wind down a little bit, maybe we'll see more of that. I've heard the remastering on the new one, because they did a lot of compression in the early 2000s on CD. It's really opened it up, because they've gone back to the original master tapes and obviously, remastered it in a different way. So we may hear it in a way that we haven't heard it before. So the deluxe editions of Heavy Traffic and Riffs come out on the 30th of September. That's a week after the Quo convention, which really surprised me because I thought, well, that seems like the perfect place to sell the deluxe edition to fans. Maybe with a perk or two, but there we are. There's obviously some thinking behind that. Thanks for joining us, Alex.
Yes, but pleasure talking to you again, Jamie, and take care of yourself. Thank you.